This is a bedtime storytelling inspired by Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. The tale unfolds in a gentle, steady voice, painting scenes of early New England, dew on wild roses, the hush before a town awakes, the soft murmur of a forest brook. Hester Prynne emerges at dawn from an oak-clamped prison, carrying her tiny child clothes. Upon her breast, she bears a peculiar emblem, a scarlet letter, embroidered and bright. It gleams in the morning light. Around the prison door, a humble rosebush offers fragrance, a small kindness from nature to a world that is judged and punished. The crowd gathers slowly, stern and somber in their hats and rough coats. Women step forward, curious and breathless. Some speak harshly, some feel only a cold duty to look on. In the marketplace, Hester stands upon a low scaffold, holding her babe. She is tall and noble. Her dark hair catches the sun with a glossy gleam. Her face is composed and still, as if made of stone. Yet in the depths of her eyes, there is a steady flame of feeling. The scarlet letter upon her bosom is sewn with gold, fanciful and brilliant. It both marks and transforms her. The ministers and magistrates sit in a balcony above, an authoritative presence. The young pastor, Reverend Dimmesdale, entreats her to speak the name that has been hidden. The crowd leans in, the baby cries for the bright day, and Hester, with a voice that is steady though low, refuses. She will not betray another's secret. Later, in a dim prison cell, she sits with the child asleep upon her lap. A stranger enters quietly, the man called Roger Chillingworth. He is learned and gentle at first, a physician by training. He ministers to the fevered child, mixing remedies of herb and alchemy. Hester drinks what he gives and is calmer. He speaks with a soft, deliberate tone, words that hint at sorrow, but also at calculation. He reveals that he once bore another name. He has traveled far, yet his arrival carries a shadow. He is the husband she had long believed lost at sea. She had been frank with him at the start, and now she swears to hold his secret. In the years that follow, Hester leaves the prison, not to hide in distant lands, but to remain where her life's events took shape. She rents a modest cottage set apart from the town, close to fields and a stretch of quiet shoreline. Her hair is modestly covered, her dress is coarse, but neat. She takes up needlework to support herself and her child. Hester becomes known for her skill with the needle. She embroiders fine gloves, ruffs, and garments for the townsfolk, touches of beauty created by the same hands that bear the scarlet letter. People come to her in times of need. When illness presses upon a household, when a mother loses a child, when a funeral calls for special cloth, she gives and gives again, sometimes to those who repay only with bitterness. Yet she never asks for more than what is needed. The child, Pearl, is a vivid presence, quick and capricious, wild as a sea sprite, a little creature of flame and curiosity. She gathers flowers by the shore, weaves imaginative garments, is given bright dresses by her mother, and moves through the people as if to test them. Some call her a sign of sin, Others only shake their heads and keep their distance. Hester watches her closely and loves her with a fierce tenderness. Each night, Hester lays Pearl down to sleep and listens to the steady breathing of the little one. She wonders at the gift of life, at its brightness, and at the burden she bears in connecting the child to a shame stamped on her own chest. At times, Hester senses that the Scarlet Letter gives her a strange, unwelcome insight, an intuition of the hidden sorrows or secret faults in others' hearts. It is as if the letter were a kind of mirror revealing more than it should. Pearl grows up amid this peculiar solitude. She is lively and sometimes harsh in her moods. She is a child who sometimes seems to be more sprite than flesh, surprising in her sudden flashes of mischief and affection. When she touches the Scarlet Letter as a baby, it startles her mother with the reminder of what she has borne since the day upon the scaffold. In the marketplace, on a bright morning, Governor Bellingham's mansion, broad and decorated with its stucco and glass-sparkled facade, becomes a scene of quiet tension. Hester takes Pearl there on an errand, an embroidered pair of gloves for the governor, and also to plead, in the calm of a stately room, that they might not take her child from her. Some wish to remove Pearl, thinking she might be better raised by the godly. Hester stands at once proud and terrified. She will not be parted from the child. The Reverend Mr. Dimmesdale, for he is Pearl's pastor, and once spoke kindly in public, gently pleads Hester's cause. He points out that the child itself, a living miracle of being, may be more a blessing than a curse, and that Providence may have given the child to Hester precisely as both boon and discipline. He argues with a sweetness that sways the fathers and magistrates. Even Governor Bellingham is moved. Thus Pearl remains where she belongs. There is another figure who rises from the crowd of scenes, the physician, who is more than physician, Roger Chillingworth. He becomes close to the young minister in private counsel. He tends the pale, earnest clergyman, who is of gentle and fragile health. Yet, in the loneliness of his study and alchemy room, the physician's friendly attentions are shaded by a curiosity that grows minute and relentless. Hester remembers the man she once called husband and wonders if she has done wrong not to reveal him. For her silence has left Dimmesdale in a position of peril, a delicate heart with no clear defense. The physician begins to pry, at first as a doctor should, gently seeking to understand his patient's physical symptoms. But his search goes deeper. He delves into the minister's inner life like a miner searching for treasure. As he grows more watchful, his face darkens with a new intensity. What had seemed calm and learned becomes an eager, almost fierce presence. He begins to suspect, or to know, something in the minister that he alone has the key to. The pastor is a man of extraordinary gifts, eloquence that uplifts a whole congregation, a brow of noble thought, eyes that hold softness and sorrow. But he is also tortured beneath, and in his private hours, he fasts and scourges himself, seeking a release that remains always elusive. He is beloved, yet inwardly tormented by a private burden that compels him to practices more severe than others can see. The physician, the husband who wore another name, watches and learns, until at length he uncovers a wound of the spirit reflected on the minister's flesh. Yet the doctor's curiosity and an appetite for vengeance twist him. Where once he might have been kindly, he becomes bound to a dark cause. The minister grows more pained, and yet his preaching deepens and brightens. On Sundays, he lifts his voice so that the congregation feels enlightenment. He speaks with an urgent sweetness that seems to carry a kind of lament. His words are like a music that moves the townspeople to tears. They call him a saint. But the pastor's spirit is divided. At times, under the pressure of grief, he seeks the solitude of the forest and walks among the trees. One night, he goes out into the dark wood to the old scaffold where Hester had once stood. There he stands alone, shivering under a sky covered in cloud. He cries out suddenly with a great sound of anguish that rises and falls against the sleeping town. A lamp moves at a window far away. An old woman, Mistress Hibbins, listens with a curious, sharp smile, and then disappears as if to ride into the night. Yet the minister is not alone in his vigil. Hester comes to him in the forest with Pearl at her side, Hester who had been watching at a deathbed and then walked through the woods. She and Pearl join him upon the scaffold, and in the quiet gloom, they speak as two long-separated hearts might. Hester's compassion, hardened and healed by long suffering, makes her resolve to confess the truth about Roger Chillingworth. She had once, in a fevered prison chamber, sworn to keep the old man's secret in order to spare what she thought might be his honor. Now, she confronts an understanding that this concealment has brought harm. The minister begs courage from Hester. They dream together of leaving to cross the sea, to take passage on a ship that waits at the harbor, and to find a new life across the water where no watchful eye will make their days a torment. It is Hester who supplies the strength. She removes the scarlet letter from her breast for that brief moment, loosens the cap that had concealed her hair, and her beauty rises like sunlight, hair loose over her shoulders, face softened, a sigh of release. The wood seems suddenly flooded with sunshine, as if the forest's mood had read their purpose and rejoiced with them. For an instant, they feel as if everything is possible. The minister's spirit steadies and smiles. Little Pearl, keen and perceptive, plays by the stream and weaves wild flowers in her hair. She is capricious. She resists kissing the minister at first. She questions whether he will sit with them and keep his hand upon his heart forever. Minister presses forward the promise of a life together, and perhaps the truer life. But shadows remain. The physician is not far from them. Hester has seen him stooping among the herbs on the hillside. Roger Chillingworth has learned enough to make him a deadly danger. He is now no longer merely curious, but bent upon understanding and controlling the minister. He takes lodgings with him. He watches the incisions on the spirit and on the body. He studies the reaction of one heart to the other. The minister's health is frail. he is tempted in ways that are often melancholy, sometimes almost comical in their perversity. A sudden desire to utter blasphemous jests to a simple, devout matron, the odd impulse to meet sailors with rollicking curses on a market street, urges he does not act upon, but which torture him. His mind alternates between the sublime and the profane as the burden on his soul grows heavier. A change occurs now in the physician. A new hunger for retribution hardens his face and seizes his mind. Revenge seems to have supplied the food of his intellect. He forgets earlier kindnesses. He is transformed by his obsession. Yet, a transformation occurs in another direction as well. Over the years, Hester's goodness and steady endurance of the hardships of exile and the sting of scorn make her into a figure of mercy in town. She sits as a gentle nurse by the sick. She sews quietly for the bereaved. Her needlework finds its way onto ruffs and gloves and infants' caps across the settlement. Slowly, the people's chilly hearts warm toward her. They begin to call her able to help and give, to remedy and console. She is the one who has known sorrow deeply, and thus knows how to give comfort. Pearl grows into a girl of 7, still quick, bright, and ungovernable, and Hester wonders whether she might not mature into a daughter both beloved and counseled. For a long while Hester fights with the thought that she should have revealed the minister's truth to save him from Chillingworth's malignity. But finally, she decides the only way to help is to act, to disclose, to free the minister, or to flee with him, and let the sea wash them away into new lives. A plan forms, and a ship is chosen. In the town, on the day when the community prepares to celebrate its public festival, the people gather in their best and their blackest clothes. Military music parades, and the great assembly convenes. The minister preaches on the day appointed an election sermon, and his words fall with extraordinary force upon the hearts of his listeners. They praise him with tears and call him angelic. In the marketplace, Hester stands with Pearl by the little scaffold. Pearl flits like a bright bird among the watchers and the sailors her dress. A flush of crimson and gold makes the small child resemble the Scarlet Letter come to life. Little Pearl is keen-eyed. When the procession passes, she watches and wonders whether it is the same Hom who kissed her on the brook's side. The minister, moved by a deep inner resolve, makes a sign as he passes. He pauses on the march. He calls Hester and Pearl to him, and the scene is poised at a strange, high moment of meaning. The physician hurriedly moves to intervene. The minister, however, no longer holds back. He mounts the scaffold, supported by Hester at his side and Pearl at his hand. The sun brightens the platform. The minister speaks aloud to the crowd, declaring with an intense clarity that the very brand they point at on Hester's bosom has its counterpart upon his own heart. He reaches across the gulf of years and anguish and seizes the moment to unbind in the open air the secret that had lacerated him. With a solemn, decisive movement, he pulls apart his vestments and reveals, to the gaze of all, the sign upon his breast. Those who stood close enough beheld it, a scarlet mark that seemed terribly like the letter Hester had borne. The public cries out in shock and wonder. The minister then sinks down, weak and triumphant at once. He asks Hester and Pearl to come near. He speaks to Pearl with tenderness. He asks forgiveness. His voice is low but clear. He tells Hester he is ready to depart and to accept whatever lies ahead. The physician stands there stunned, for the secret he longed to control has been exposed without his plan's completion. He has, in pursuing knowledge and revenge, lost his own object. The minister declines into silence, and in his last moments he looks to Hester. He breathes out a prayer that is both confession and a plea for mercy. There are many versions of what he said and what mark was found upon him. Some fretted minds swear that the Scarlet Letter appeared plainly imprinted on his breast in the final hour. Others, especially those who loved him best, insist it was only a spiritual revelation, that a brave man in reveal had shown his soul to the world, and so dissolved the false idol of public sanctity that some had made of him. After his death, the physician quickly changes. The motive that had driven him a grim hunger for the minister's inner life vanishes, and without it, his vigor fades. He sickens, and within the year he dies. In his will he had left a fortune to Pearl, enough to set her up in the world. Hester's life passes on. She remains in the settlement for many years. The Scarlet Letter stays upon her bosom, no longer a mere badge of shame, but a symbol of suffering, endurance, and compassion. People come to her seeking counsel. Women with broken hearts, parents in sorrow, the ill and the lonely, she sits with them and speaks with a wisdom and tenderness they trust. In the end, Hester either departs with Pearl across the sea or returns years later to the little cottage and enters its door. The scarlet A still upon her chest, some say to die there, others that she was seen no more, and that Pearl made a home in distant lands where her lineage and love brought her happiness. Over the burial ground, finally, a single grave and a single stone mark the end. A simple slate on which an engraved heraldic device, on a field sable, the letter A, Gules remains like a riddle for those who come after. And so, the story lingers as a kind of moral parable of sin and shame, yes, and of pain and retribution, but also of endurance and compassion. It shows how the harshness of social judgment and the private yearning of the human heart can collide, and how mercy, not always as easy as judgment, dwells in the bone of things. Now, dear listener, close your eyes. Imagine the gentle rosebush by the iron-clamped door, its blossoms trembling in the June light. Envision Hester, moving softly within her cottage, needle in hand, Pearl at play with pebbles by the shore. Picture the tiny brook rippling through the forest, keeping its quiet, never weary of whispering its small secrets. Breathe in the hush that follows confession, and breathe out the warm release of forgiveness, whether given or received. As sleep comes near, let the warmth of the last sunlight on the forest floor fill your thoughts. Imagine the minister's final moments softening into peace, and Hester's lonely acts of care becoming a kind of quiet sanctity. Let Pearl's laughter and the brook's small music guide you toward the restful place where sorrow and joy are no longer separate, but woven into a single, gentle tapestry. Let all that is heavy be softened, and let mercy be the last thing you remember before sleep. Good night.